What happens when an AI meant to help causes devastating harm? The real risks aren't science fiction villains. They're hiding somewhere far closer. The truth will completely change how you think about AI. Let's find out.
What is the truth about AI risk taxonomy and governance frameworks? We imagine boardrooms filled with cybersecurity experts, building impenetrable digital fortresses to protect us from rogue superintelligence. But what if they are looking in the wrong direction?
The uncomfortable reality is that the corporate world is currently engaged in a massive game of pretend. Executives are pouring billions into artificial intelligence, yet they are attempting to govern these highly advanced autonomous systems using risk frameworks designed decades ago. They are locking the front door, completely unaware that the walls have already vanished.
Walk into almost any Fortune 500 compliance department today and ask them how they track artificial intelligence. How are these massive organizations currently attempting to manage the unprecedented risks introduced by machine learning and neural networks?
Astonishingly, most organizations are trying to manage generative AI using risk matrices designed for 1990s server maintenance. In traditional IT, a server crash might score a 6 on a static risk scale. But when an AI system silently introduces gender bias into HR screening or hallucinates financial data, that same outdated matrix fails to capture a critical level 16 threat.
If these traditional risk models were supposedly designed to handle complex data, what happens when a major corporation blindly trusts a traditional, non-generative algorithm to run its core business? Can a math equation actually bankrupt a company?
In 2021, the real estate giant Zillow found out the hard way. They relied on an automated valuation model to flip houses at scale, but algorithmic overconfidence blinded them to shifting market dynamics. The result, Zillow was forced to shut down the entire division, swallow a staggering $569 million write-down, and fire 2,000 employees.
Zillow's disaster was caused by a rigid, predictable mathematical model. So how does the risk landscape escalate when artificial intelligence transitions from a static algorithm into a conversational, generative agent that speaks directly to your customers?
It creates an entirely new category of legal liability. When Air Canada deployed a customer service chatbot, the AI confidently hallucinated a fake bereavement discount policy. When a customer sued, Air Canada desperately argued the chatbot was a separate legal entity responsible for its own actions. A Canadian tribunal rejected that defense, forcing the airline to honor the machine's hallucination.
If these chatbots are prone to making things up, why can't developers simply hard-code strict safety rules into conversational AI? Can't we just tell the machine exactly what it is never allowed to say?
Generative AI doesn't work like traditional software. It is fundamentally non-deterministic. The National Eating Disorders Association learned this tragically with their chatbot, Tessa. Despite being programmed to help, the AI went rogue, actively encouraging highly vulnerable users to count calories and lose weight. The system had to be disabled, proving that traditional guardrails cannot contain semantic confabulation.
If AI systems can spontaneously generate harmful content on their own, how do malicious actors exploit these vulnerabilities? Do hackers need advanced coding skills to breach the defenses of modern generative AI applications?
Not anymore. The most critical generative AI exploits require absolutely no code at all, only conversational English. Governing traditional AI meant securing databases from syntax-based attacks, but governing Gen AI means constraining a machine's autonomy against semantic manipulation. Hackers now use natural language to convince AI agents to escalate privileges and move laterally through corporate networks. Compliance teams are building massive audit frameworks, terrified of autonomous agents and clever hackers manipulating their sanctioned AI systems. But if external hackers aren't the primary danger, what is the ultimate threat, fundamentally breaking AI governance today?
The most counterintuitive reality of AI risk governance is that your greatest threat isn't a rogue superintelligence or a hacker. It is an ambitious mid-level employee trying to finish a presentation by 5 p.m. Over 80% of office workers bypass IT to use unapproved Shadow AI. To survive the agentic era, organizations must stop treating AI as a static IT syntax problem and govern it as a dynamic semantic engine,
completely re-engineering the classic 3 lines of defense.
While corporate compliance teams proudly guard their empty fortresses of sanctioned AI, what is the true cost of ignoring this invisible workforce? What happens when 80% of your employees are secretly collaborating with unvetted neural networks?
The financial exposure is staggering. Statistics show that 54% of these Shadow AI tools have been used to upload sensitive proprietary company data directly into public models. By 2026, the average cost of a Shadow AI data breach is projected to exceed $5 million. The call is coming from inside the house, and our legacy governance frameworks are completely deaf to it.
We know that employees bypassing IT protocols creates catastrophic vulnerabilities. But what happens when the threat isn't a rogue employee using unapproved tools, but the company's fully sanctioned multi-million-dollar artificial intelligence going completely off the rails?
Look no further than the real estate giant Zillow. They trusted their proprietary algorithmic home flipping business to accurately predict housing prices, but the model suffered from algorithmic overconfidence. In 2021, this unmanaged AI risk resulted in a massive $569 million write-down and forced the company to fire 2,000 employees.
While Zillow's failure wiped out $500 million in capital, could the consequences of an unmonitored artificial intelligence extend beyond corporate balance sheets? What is the true human cost of deploying generative models without adequate governance?
The human cost is terrifyingly real. In 2023, the National Eating Disorders Association deployed an AI chatbot named Tessa to replace human helpline workers. Instead of providing support, the AI hallucinated, actively encouraging highly vulnerable users to count calories and lose weight. The bot had to be urgently disabled, proving that unchecked AI can inflict profound psychological harm.
If a human employee gives disastrous advice or makes a false promise, the company is clearly liable. But when a generative AI hallucinates and creates its own policies out of thin air, who takes the blame in a court of law? Air Canada attempted a desperate legal defense when their generative AI chatbot hallucinated a fake bereavement discount for a customer. The airline argued in court that the chatbot was a separate legal entity responsible for its own actions. A Canadian tribunal forcefully rejected this, forcing Air Canada to honor the fake discount and establishing that corporations own their AI's mistakes.
If major corporations know they are financially and legally responsible for these catastrophic failures, why do they keep happening? Why are compliance teams, armed with massive budgets, completely failing to secure their own artificial intelligence systems?
The failure stems from a fundamental mismatch in governance. Organizations are attempting to manage modern generative AI using risk assessment tools designed for 1990s server maintenance. Compliance teams are building massive, rigid audit frameworks, effectively guarding an empty fortress, while dynamic, non-deterministic AI models operate completely outside traditional parameters.
Traditional cybersecurity focuses on patching software vulnerabilities and blocking malicious code. But if generative AI doesn't respond to traditional hacking methods, how are malicious actors actually exploiting these advanced enterprise systems today? Governing traditional AI meant securing data syntax. Governing generative AI means constraining the machine's autonomy. Today's most critical Gen AI attacks exploit semantic meaning rather than syntax. Hackers don't need complex code anymore. They only need conversational English. By using natural language prompts, they can manipulate the AI's logic, bypassing security firewalls that only look for traditional malware.
Chatbots that answer questions are one thing, but the industry is rapidly moving toward agentic AI, systems designed to take actions on our behalf. What happens when these conversational interfaces are granted autonomy to execute tasks?
As AI becomes agentic, the threat landscape fundamentally changes. The OWASP Top 10 for agentic applications warns that threats are shifting toward privilege escalation. If an AI agent is compromised via a natural language exploit, it isn't just a data leak. That autonomous agent can now move laterally through corporate networks, executing commands and accessing systems as if it were an authorized user.
With autonomous agents navigating corporate networks and chatbots hallucinating company policy, traditional risk matrices are effectively blind. How can organizations even begin to map out and categorize threats that are entirely non-deterministic and unpredictable?
This is where modern governance frameworks finally intervene. The NIST Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework, specifically its generative AI profile, was created to formally classify these unprecedented dangers. It provides a taxonomy for non-deterministic risks, explicitly defining phenomena like confabulation, dangerous capabilities, and semantic manipulation, giving risk officers a new language to describe these threats.
Even with new frameworks like NIST, can a standard corporate risk matrix accurately weigh the danger of a biased algorithm against a traditional IT failure? How must organizations adapt to survive the agentic AI era?
Traditional matrices are obsolete. Under old models, a standard server crash might score a 6 in risk severity. But an AI model exhibiting gender bias in automated HR screening scores a critical 16 due to cascading legal and reputational damage. To survive, organizations must shift from treating AI as a static IT syntax problem to governing it as a dynamic semantic engine, completely re-engineering the classic 3 lines of defense.
We've mapped the semantic risks. We've admitted that traditional matrices are dead. So, what is the ultimate truth about AI risk taxonomy and governance frameworks in this new, unpredictable era? Organizations are terrified of science fiction scenarios. They build massive fortresses to protect against rogue superintelligence or elite cyber syndicates. But while executives stare at the horizon looking for a digital apocalypse, the actual collapse of their governance frameworks is happening right under their noses, quietly dismantling the enterprise from within.
If rogue superintelligence isn't the immediate danger, what is? When we look at the first wave of catastrophic AI failures, do we see sophisticated cyber attacks or something far more mundane and deeply embarrassing?
Real damage comes from misplaced trust. Zillow lost over $500 million and fired 2,000 people because they blindly trusted an overconfident algorithmic home flipping model. Meanwhile, Air Canada was forced by a tribunal to honor a fake discount hallucinated by its own customer service chatbot after absurdly arguing the AI was a separate legal entity.
Corporations spend millions on risk mitigation. They deploy legions of compliance officers to monitor every digital asset. So how do these catastrophic AI hallucinations slip past the most heavily funded security teams on the planet?
Compliance teams are treating AI like a 1990s server maintenance issue. They build massive audit frameworks for sanctioned, deterministic software. But generative AI isn't a static IT syntax problem. It's a dynamic, semantic engine. While auditors lock down the official front door, they completely miss the new invisible vectors of attack that don't even use code.
We are used to threats wrapped in malicious code. But if generative AI attacks exploit semantic meaning rather than syntax, what does a critical exploit look like when it requires absolutely zero programming knowledge?
As AI becomes agentic, meaning it can take actions on its own, the OWASP Top 10 highlights a terrifying shift. Cyber threats are escalating from simple data leaks to AI agents being tricked into moving laterally through corporate networks. And the exploit isn't a complex script, it's a carefully crafted, persuasive sentence in plain English, manipulating the AI's logic.
You no longer need a hoodie and a dark web forum to breach a corporate network. If natural language is the new programming language, who is actually introducing the most severe vulnerabilities into the enterprise?
It isn't a foreign syndicate or an anonymous hacker. The statistics are staggering. Over 54% of unapproved AI tools have been used to upload highly sensitive, proprietary company data. Employees are willingly handing over the keys to the kingdom, completely bypassing the IT department's carefully constructed, yet entirely obsolete, security perimeter.
Corporate espionage is usually deliberate, but these employees aren't malicious insiders trying to sabotage their employers. So why are they actively circumventing security protocols and feeding classified data into unauthorized third-party generative AI models?
They aren't trying to steal. They are trying to survive in a high-pressure corporate environment. The average cost of an AI data breach is projected to hit $5.5 million by 2026, and the primary driver isn't malice, it is convenience. This underground network of unauthorized tools is known as Shadow AI.
We've seen the public disasters, the failure of outdated audits,
and the rise of language-based exploits. When we strip away the science fiction, what is the core, counterintuitive truth about governing artificial intelligence in the modern enterprise?
The most counterintuitive reality of AI risk governance is that your greatest threat isn't a rogue superintelligence. It is an ambitious mid-level employee trying to finish a presentation by 5 p.m. This Shadow AI phenomenon, where over 80% of workers use unapproved tools, fundamentally breaks traditional risk models. To survive the Agentic AI era, organizations must completely re-engineer the classic 3 lines of defense.
If over 80% of the workforce is already operating in the shadows, prohibition is clearly a failed strategy. How do organizations adapt their governance frameworks to survive and thrive in the Agentic AI era?
Survival requires a radical cultural shift. The new 3 lines of defense must move beyond rigid checklists. Companies must provide secure, sanctioned AI environments that are actually better and faster than the shadow tools employees are smuggling in. Governance can no longer be a roadblock. It must become the invisible guardrail that safely accelerates human ambition.
We started by asking, AI risk taxonomy and governance frameworks. And the answer? The most counterintuitive reality of AI risk governance is that your greatest threat isn't a rogue superintelligence. It is an ambitious mid-level employee trying to finish a presentation by 5 p.m. This shadow AI phenomenon, where over 80